Warner spent more money on ads for Wuthering Heights than it cost to actually make the movie. Amazon spent another $93 million on a heist film nobody asked for. And they're still trying to convince you Glen Powell is a movie star, but he just flopped twice in a row. Here are February's biggest box office bombs. Amazon MGM has been burning cash on their theatrical releases. Masters of the Universe cost $200 million. Project Hail Mary went over $150. These guys have deep pockets and they're not afraid to empty them. Their Valentine's Day release was Crime 101, a heist thriller starring Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, and Halle Berry. According to Matt Maloney, the film cost $93 million to make after incentives. When you watch it, you start wondering where that money went. Sure, you've got three big names in the cast, but even accounting for their salaries, how does this thing cost $93 million? It opened President's Day weekend to $16 million domestic over 4 days. That's Chris Hemsworth's worst domestic opening in 8 years, since Bad Times at the El Royale back in 2018. The movie hit over 3,000 screens with an R rating and a stacked cast, and it still couldn't get people to show up. After 3 weeks, the worldwide total is sitting at $57 million. Domestic is at $30 million. The break-even point is estimated at over $200 million. It's not even close. Amazon lost a fortune on this thing theatrically. But of course, Amazon doesn't really care about theatrical the way traditional studios do. It's definitely a streaming play for them. It'll end up on Prime Video, and that's where they'll measure whether it was worth the money. They can afford to lose at the box office, and they keep doing exactly that. For the past couple years, the narrative's been that Hollywood can't make movie stars anymore. Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Denzel Washington, they're a dying breed. The industry's been looking for someone to carry that torch into the future. A lot of people thought Glen Powell might be that guy. Top Gun Maverick, Hitman, Twisters, he was on a roll. Studios started betting big on him. That plan is not looking so good right now. Back in November, Powell led Edgar Wright's The Running Man. Budget was over $110 million. It made just $69 million worldwide, lost a ton of money. Then in February, A24 released How to Make a Killing. Powell stars alongside Margaret Qualley, Ed Harris, and Topher Grace in a dark comedy directed by John Patton Ford. Budget was around $15 million, which for A24 is actually pretty high. It went wide on 1,700 screens, made $3 million opening weekend. Reviews were mixed at 48% on Rotten Tomatoes, and people just didn't care about Glen Powell in yet another thriller. Right now, it's sitting at $6.3 million total. Internationally, it made just $41,000. They basically didn't even bother releasing it overseas. 2 flops in a row for Powell, and studios had bet on him being an A-lister who could sell tickets on his name alone, which is a theory that's never actually been proven. There are plenty of theories about what went wrong. Maybe the marketing didn't work. Maybe the movie just wasn't very good. People who saw it said it wasn't funny enough to be a comedy or sharp enough to be satire. Or maybe Hollywood's hype machine did what it always does. Overexposed him by signing him to too many projects at once, trying to force him into stardom before audiences were ready to accept it. Powell's got J.J. Abrams' The Great Beyond coming in November and a Ron Howard firefighting movie after that, so he's not hurting for work. But the whole Glen Powell is a movie star experiment just crashed twice in 3 months. Gore Verbinski, the guy who made the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. $3 billion at the box office across that franchise. Then in 2016, he took a break. 10 years went by and nobody really noticed he was gone. Then he came back with Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. The movie's about a guy from a dystopian future who lands at a Norm's Diner in LA and recruits random, unhappy customers to save the world from AI. The project started 8 years earlier as a 26-page TV pilot called Don't Trust Anyone Under 30, which honestly is a better title. A bunch of filmmakers tried to make it happen, couldn't figure it out. Then someone pitched it to Verbinski, and within 2 days he was in. Once he signed on, it still took another 3 years to actually get it made. The marketing for this thing was genuinely creative. They flew a plane with a banner over Silicon Valley that said "Hire human beings." They gave away 2,000 tickets to people who'd recently lost their jobs to AI. Briarcliff Entertainment went all in on the campaign. Biggest promotional push they'd done since The Apprentice. And the movie actually performed well enough that they extended its theatrical run. Word of mouth was strong, people liked it, Sam Rockwell was great in it like always. But it still flopped. Made $7 million on a $20 million budget. Almost all of that came from domestic theaters because there was basically no international release. Luc Besson made The Fifth Element and Lucy, so he's got a decent track record with big spectacle stuff, but he's not a guaranteed hit anymore, and this Dracula movie proves it. He straight up admitted in interviews that he's not a fan of horror films and he's not a fan of Dracula. He wanted to make a tragic romance instead, though he kept some horror elements in there. So you've got a Dracula adaptation that's not really about vampires or horror, made by a director who openly doesn't like the source material. Great start. The movie came out in France in July 2025. Then it took 6 months to get a wide release in North America. Didn't hit US theaters until February 2026. By that time, nobody cared anymore. We already had Del Toro's Frankenstein doing the gothic fantasy thing, and I guess people figured one was enough. Even Christoph Waltz in a supporting role didn't help. It made $41 million worldwide, lost tens of millions when you factor in marketing. Funny enough, it actually became the biggest success for a French film in the US since 2017. Made over $9 million in its first 10 days, but that still wasn't anywhere near enough to break even. Andrew Kevin Walker wrote Seven. He also wrote The Killer for David Fincher. He script-doctored Fight Club and The Game. The guy knows how to write thrillers. So when it was announced 5 years ago that he was writing another movie called Psycho Killer, people were interested. Walker returning to the grisly thriller genre he built his career on. That should work, right? Except 20th Century Studios knew it didn't work. They shot this thing 3 years ago and then just buried it. When they finally released it this February, they didn't screen it for critics. Barely marketed it. The studio knew it was bad and just dumped it into theaters to die. It opened with 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. The Guardian called it too straightforward and dumb to work as a crime thriller, yet too dull and scare-free to work as a horror. Another reviewer said it was a cinematic trash dump of plot holes and huge unanswered questions. People complained about horrible CGI and generic plotting. Someone called it the worst horror movie they'd ever seen. It made $250,000 on opening day. Right now it's sitting at $2.4 million domestically, and there's no word on any international release. The budget was under $10 million, so 20th Century was hoping to at least break even, but that's not happening. The only question I have is this: how do you write Seven, one of the greatest thrillers ever made, and then write this? Three years ago, Mexican director Michel Franco made Memory, where Jessica Chastain falls for a man with dementia. Now he's back with Dreams, where she falls for an undocumented immigrant. The movie premiered at Berlin Film Festival in 2025, didn't win anything, then it spent months trying to find a US distributor because nobody wanted it. Eventually, Greenwich Entertainment picked it up. Then they sat on it for months before giving it a February 27th release date. Almost a full year from festival premiere to theaters. It was a low-budget production, $3 million shot in San Francisco. They got a waiver to shoot during the actors' strike. Jessica Chastain's a big star, but she never was a guaranteed box office draw on her own. She makes serious dramas for grown-ups, and those movies don't do much business anymore. So Dreams made $340,000 at the box office total. It's a flop by design. It never had a chance at anything bigger, but Michel Franco doesn't care. He told Variety he's never worked in Hollywood and never will because he'd lose his freedom. which is fine for him, I guess, but it doesn't change the fact that his $3 million movie made just $300 grand.